Welcome back. If you're the kind of person who loves finding the deep meaning in everyday things, well, you're in exactly the right place. In today's Explainer, we're unpacking a really fascinating piece by Ang. It's from July 8th, 2026, titled Notes on Gardening, Part 949, and we're going to explore some pretty brilliant observations about nature, time, and, believe it or not, human psychology. Okay, let's dive right in. So, is gardening just a chore? Is it literally just the mechanical, physical act of digging a hole, dropping some seeds in the dirt, and walking away? I mean, a lot of people probably think so, but as we're going to see through Eng's incredibly detailed notes, the garden is actually this profound classroom. It's a space that teaches us a whole lot about ourselves. So our journey starts right at the micro level with what Eng calls the gardening experiment. Some really practical observations straight from the dirt. And Aang didn't just casually plant a single flower one weekend and decide to write this up. No, they've been experimenting, exploring, and evaluating various flowering plants for so many moons. That's a real, intense, long-term dedication right there. The insights we're about to explore, they're born from deep, prolonged observation of how nature actually operates over time. And during all those moons out there, Aang made a pretty surprising discovery. You'd probably assume a beautiful garden requires constant, back-breaking labor, right? But surprisingly, Eng found that some plants actually thrive with practically zero effort. Literally just occasional watering and a tiny bit of fertilizer, and they flourish. It's kind of fascinating to see how minimal our physical intervention actually needs to be when we just let nature take the wheel. Which brings us to the core conflict of this whole thing, the classic battle of perennials versus annuals. Now, what's really interesting about this botanical showdown is the contrast. On one side, we've got perennial shrubs and ground orchids, the resilient ones that stay alive and keep coming back year after year. And on the flip side, we have annuals. These guys complete their entire life cycle in just one single season, and they are famously a lot more demanding and short-term. When Eng put these two head-to-head, perennials really came out on top in some highly specific ways. For one, they are much hardier than annuals. Plus, their flowers last significantly longer, and they're highly resistant to pests. I mean, from a purely practical standpoint, they seem like the ultimate easy care winner, don't they? But there's a catch, and it's a big one. The trade-off for all that incredible resilience and longevity is a very, very slow growth rate. When you plant a perennial shrub, you are absolutely not getting instant gratification. You're watching a plant take its absolute sweet time just to establish itself, way before it ever even thinks about rewarding you with a single flower. And honestly, that requires immense patience. But Eng actually validates that slow, sometimes agonizing process with this really gentle reassurance. They write, "You'll have to be patient before you can truly appreciate the blooms. Honestly, it is worth the wait." The eventual payoff absolutely justifies that agonizingly slow growth. Let's move up from the dirt for a second and look at the sensory reward, the real appeal of the bloom. And compares flowering plants directly to foliage plants, the ones grown just for their green leaves. And sure, plain green leaves are nice and all, but the appeal of a flowering plant, it's a whole different ballgame. You get this stunning visual impact paired with a sweet fragrance. It's a full, rich sensory reward that simple leaves just can't compete with. Let's see how this actually builds. It starts with step 1, the appearance of a tiny, tightly wrapped bud. Then comes step 2, the wait, just sitting there, slowly maturing, really testing your patience. And then finally, step 3, full bloom and accomplishment. Eng notes that watching this physical transition provides this deep, deep sense of accomplishment. It triggers a profound appreciation for nature and really for life itself. It's an emotional journey just as much as a botanical one. So, zooming out from those micro details, we get to the real philosophical takeaway here, the lessons we find right there in the dirt. Eng writes that gardening is a profound, grounding dialogue between you and the nature. Notice how we've completely shifted away from the mere mechanics of soil and seeds now? Gardening, according to Eng, is a conversation. It's this interactive, deeply mindful experience that literally roots you to the earth. And in this dialogue, nature teaches us a few critical lessons. The first one is presence, being fully focused and engaged in the current moment, just stripping away all external distractions. I mean, think about your own fast-paced life for a second. With notifications constantly pinging and schedules overflowing, how often are you truly fully present?
The garden demands that you practice that presence. And this brilliantly illustrates our second lesson, impermanence, the realization that absolutely nothing lasts forever. It's this broad, unavoidable truth about our existence, and it's beautifully and kind of tragically mirrored by the fleeting life of a flower. It blooms brightly, it offers its incredible fragrance, and then it fades. It reminds us to appreciate things exactly as they are, right here, right now, because they won't be here forever. The final lesson takes us right back to that slow growth rate of those hardy perennials we talked about earlier, delayed gratification. The garden is an absolute masterclass in resisting the urge for an immediate, quick reward, so you can get a much more enduring, significant one later on. By cultivating those slow-growing shrubs and waiting for that bud to finally open, you're actually cultivating your own patience. So the crucial point here is captured beautifully in Eng's summarizing thesis. This is what gardening is all about. It's not about the seeds, it's not about the fertilizer, or even the dirt. It's about learning presence, impermanence, and delayed gratification through a grounding dialogue with the earth. Which leaves us with one final thought to take with you today. If you don't happen to have a garden, where do you get your lessons in delayed gratification and presence? In our hyper-fast, instant delivery world, where are you finding your grounding dialogue? Think on that for a bit. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, and keep exploring.